program are you using right now? Evan or Ed, what program or what format are you using to do your CMAs currently?
I use the matrix as well.
Okay.
The Big Bear matrix.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to get started. I know that we will have the expert on KV Core joining us here shortly, and in fact, that's part of the presentation, is doing something that she had sent to me. But I wanted to start out, briefly with a little bit of a history of the CMA.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry, Mark. But is Nicole, is she still on? She stepped away. Nicole, can you please send Judy the link to the meeting? I'm sorry, I didn't think to ask her to join the meeting before. So, okay, I just texted her, so she'll be on.
Okay, so the first thing that I would share with you is to not use the acronym CMA when you're talking with your clients. Your clients don't know what a CMA is. I love that, that little skit in Good Morning Vietnam when they say, the VP, did a VIP, and, and the K, everybody's going to be on KP if they don't do this. Using all these acronyms is not good communication. And as salespeople, one of the things that we want to do is to create good communication with our clients. So it is better to use, the entire phrase comparable market analysis, and be prepared to sort of explain what that is, which, we're comparing your home versus the things that are competing with it on the market versus the things recently sold. And sometimes you're going to be using things that were not successful in the market to getting them sold as well. So one of the questions that I wrote down, before we got into the presentation is the history. In the history of the CMAs, we've been using those for the entire 38 years that I've been in the business. They were here long before I got here. But where I learned it was in an environment that's completely different from today. And the environment is that the public did not have information that we have.
Right.
They did not have any information whatsoever. And so, 1985, when I get in the business, the buyers, walk into your office when they want to find a house because they don't have any other way to find them other than newspaper ads and magazine ads at the time. And when a seller wants to sell, they don't know what's sold in their neighborhood because that information is not public. It's not available to them. So real estate brokers and real estate agents had a major leg up, probably up until about 20 years ago. And then, 25 years ago, back in 1995, the internet was starting to come into play. A lot of people were not necessarily aware of it. The information on it wasn't all that accurate. But it certainly is a heck of a lot better now than it was back in 1995 and 2000 and 2001. So, that led me to the next question, which is, are CMAs outdated? Are they necessary? Are they effective? And I think the answer to that is the old method is outdated. The old method is outdated. A lot of people were taught in training, to take in 3, listings and 3 sales and 3 expireds and sort of bracket where you wanted, to direct the client to be from price. And because they didn't have a lot of information, if you gave them 3 sold properties at 98 to 99,000 and you showed them one guy listed at 98 and 2 guys listed over 100, and you showed them everybody expiring over 100, it was pretty easy to say, well, based on this information, you need to be at 99, or 98 in order to be able to get your home sold, because we had control over what information our clients were getting. That is no longer true. So often when we go into a listing presentation today and we show our comps to our customer, the seller will say, well, how about that house, 3 doors down that sold, that's only half the size and, was and sold for, whatever number, or sold 2 years ago, that kind of thing. So the sellers have a lot more information available to them, which makes what we're doing with these comparable market analysis more difficult. The benefits to them is that when you have a presentation and you understand how to present it, have a CMA that you understand the limitations. When you understand that, it gives you a tool to get into a sales conversation with your client. And remember, again, always that selling means that we're influencing thought. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people do with comparable market analysis over the years is they will take in comps that don't justify or don't direct the client to the price that you're recommending to them. The comp, you got a comp at 950, you got a comp at $1.3 million, and you're saying, hey, you need to be at $1 million. And they go, well, why am I not $1.3 million? I mean, if you can't express that to them with the comparables that you're including in your presentation, the CMA is not very effective. And so I don't think that it's the CMA necessarily that is the problem. I think it is much more the presentation and your understanding of what you're trying to get across to them, which is most important. Okay. So we talked a little bit at the beginning. There's people using the Big Bear MLS. There's people using CRMLS. There's a handful of people that are using the KV Core CMA program in order to do their CMAs. And everybody, I think, has expressed that there are limitations to them. There are limitations to each of the presentations that we have. So it's important to understand what those limitations are and to figure out how to overcome them if you want to be successful in having a conversation with your clients, if that makes sense, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go over, a bunch of things actually. So let's see. That's going to be all my emails. You guys don't want to see that. How do I get to what I want to get to, which is right here? No, right there. Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. Okay, so this is a KV Core presentation that is available to us. And I hope you guys are taking notes as I sort of go through some of this information with you, is that it's available to us through our KV Core program, and it is pulling comps from both MLSs that we are involved with, okay? So from my perspective as a broker and as a salesperson, I like the data that is available in the KV Core CMA because I don't have to go to 2 locations in order to aggregate the comparable data. So that's a positive that, all of the comps are going to be there. It is customizable. This is something that was prepared and shared, with something that Dana was working on. And so, I wanted to just sort of go through this. One of the things that you can see is that you can add pictures into it and customize it. This was a CMA that they were doing on snowmass. Let me see.
Mark, by the way, this is an old picture. That's from when we sold it to them and way back when. So there's new pictures. That's why that one looks a little blurry.
Okay.
Just FYI.
So yeah, so and so that's a good point. So I'm gathering what you mean by that is that you didn't go out and take new professional photos when you did the CMA. You took it from the old MLS. Is that right?
When the CMA was done, yeah, it was, she put in the old picture because it's the one we had.
Yeah.
Just doing the CMA. And a lot of times you don't have that. You don't have a picture unless you go out and take one. Yeah. Or you use some Google shot or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to the seller. I mean, they know what their home looks like.
Yeah. So my suggestion to all of you is if you're going to be doing a comparable market analysis for a client, I would go by and I would take a high quality shot with your cell phone that shows exactly what it looks like today, rather than pull something, from another source. I mean, that would be my suggestion. Obviously, if you're out of state like I am, that's not something that you can do. You can have your team members do it for you. But it would be better to have a sharper photo in the presentation, but it is what it is. So it is customizable. This one has some, what I would call boilerplate kinds of information that you can talk to your client about the value of working with an agent. I like this, this kind of stuff. I like this kind of stuff. All of this kind of stuff is information that is important to us, I think, a lot of times, but I don't know how effective it is for most customers. Here's where we get into the comparables. And one of the benefits about using this KV Core, in addition to having more data available to it, is that it's presented very well. I mean, there's really good graphics that are used here. It's showing you where the comparables are. It's showing you a map of the area. I believe you're able to customize some of this language that you want over here. It's going to give you averages and the ranges of the comparables and everything that you're using, okay? So for right now, I'm only showing you sort of the visuals of what the presentation looks like. This one shows you the average of the closed comps is 912. This shows you a sold one. Here shows you a couple of the active ones. I don't know why it's only showing those rather than all of them. See, do you see how I toggled that big picture?
So can you click on,
In the circle, you can click on all those. If you go back one, it shows anything that pops up in that dot you can look at. Yeah, like all those in there. Yeah. And you can click on.
So, from the standpoint of having a tool that is sort of impressive, in order to use, this is a great program for that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do in here that are impressive. Big picture, the comparables. There's 4 homes in this price range. There's, how many is there? 15 homes in this price range. There's 3 in this price range. So that sort of takes you into this area. I mean, if that makes sense, when you pull the comps, it sort of gives you a big picture. I think you can do this one. This is price per square foot. Again, it's, it's showing the ranges in there. So you can toggle these things and do different things with it.
And Mark, we can set up parameters, right?
Yes, yeah, and so the next screen that I go to is going to be able to take you through, so you can sort of see in KV Core where some of these options are offered to you. Okay, market assessment, average monthly listing sales price. I mean, here's all kinds of. Here's the fresh listings, the ones that just came on the market. I don't know how to get back from that. We'll try this again. Uh-oh, now I'm stuck there. I've got to, there we go. Half of the closed comparables took less than 67 days to close. You click on there, this starts telling you what the days on the market is. So depending on your style of presentation, you'll be able to use a lot of this. This is showing you, I believe, what the median of the closed price per square foot is, or what the prices are in the middle. Okay. I'm not necessarily sure that I want to spend too much time going through, other than giving you an overview of what this looks like once you've completed, the CMA, and what your options are when you're talking with a client going over it. Hopefully you're doing your presentations and not sending the presentation to them, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This particular slide that is here, that has been around, for probably 38 years. I mean, in a different format. It wasn't on the internet when I first saw it, but it talks about why pricing correctly is important. If you're 15% below market value, 90% of the people that are out there will buy it. If you're 15% higher, only 10% people will buy it. And if your house isn't special, then there's nobody there for it, if that makes sense. The only time that an overpriced listing sells is when it's really special and somebody's willing to overpay for it. Okay, this is really critical in today's market, a slide like this to explain it. Okay, buyer demand, the law of supply and demand dictates the equilibrium of the market. We talk about that and absorption rates and all that kind of stuff. Active versus active non-comparable. I don't know that that really helps me too much. I don't understand it. Bill, well, how would you respond to that? Active comparable, active non-comparable. How would you?
I've not seen that. I don't know how I would talk about that one.
Yeah.
However, I would have prepared before I made the presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is sort of an interesting. So there's our comp, and then when we turn this on, all of those other things show up, but I don't know necessarily why there's an active versus a non-active, so I'll have to research why that's important.
Mark, they're both active.
Yeah, but there's a
So
criteria
the non-comparable, I'm interpreting as it's active in the area, but it's not a comparable to this property, I guess.
Yes.
That was my interpretation too, but
I don't see it. I don't.
If you
I
read
don't
on the
see it.
left, it says just misses the mark for being considered a comparable.
So
Right, because a lot of times potential sellers will say, well, this one over here, and start going into everything about some other house, and it's really not comparable to theirs. It's really not a comparable, other than it's close by.
It will show the total market activity, however.
yeah, I wish that there, where it says active comparable and active non-comparable, it'd be great. In my mind, it would be is like if there's 5 and there's 25. I mean, that would help me. I don't think I can figure it out what they're trying to. I can't figure out the point that you're trying to make with that.
What if you click on one of the green dots or the green flags? So that's Eagle Ridge.
25% larger, 1% smaller. I mean, it's giving, yeah. Okay. Well, let's get off of that one because that one's. So this is sort of an interesting thing. It says, I have interested buyers searching in this area. Our office works with both buyers and sellers and keeps an update funnel of interest. What I think is really important about this is because we have KV Core and it is a company tool, is that in your presentation, there are leads within our system that are not your clients. They are clients of the company. They are leads from the company. They are different things. And so what this is doing is it's talking about some of the activity that's going on with our company. And, and it's like saying that, within the database of our agents, there's 9 buyers that are looking specifically for a house like yours. I think that's a really powerful slide to be able to present to your clients when you're doing a listing presentation. Any comments or thoughts about that?
I'd like to see what Big Bear MLS also has as clients that looking for that kind of property.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Talking about your marketing plan. Go ahead.
I've got lots of contacts in the Big Bear MLS, but I don't put any of them in the KV Core.
Okay.
Add it when you make it. Put them in there.
Okay, so then it's going into and talking about your marketing plan. I'm sure that there's some additional slides or some additional information that you can share with them. We have this KV Core Social is a way to automate some of our online presentations to Facebook and other areas on social media. I know that you can boost your properties. Mike Carter's been talking about that a lot at the sales meetings that we have, and I have done it a handful of times with the listings that we have. So you can promote an open house, you can promote a new listing, you can promote a price reduction and different things like that. And I've noticed that each time that we have done that, and I think the fee is somewhere between $45 and $60 that I've been spending on them, is that we will normally see some kind of engagement through that social media on the listing that we're promoting. So, you know, just sort of give you that plug there. And there's a thank you. Now this says choose your next step. So I'm imagining the reason for this slide is that a lot of times, you know, Dan, I don't know if you sent this out and didn't go over it with them face to face and just sent it to them to allow them to go through it themselves. You can certainly do that, but I prefer to do a presentation with the CMA in front of them. And I'll explain those reasons as we get a little bit farther through. So anybody have any questions on that?
Not a question, just was going to make a suggestion that maybe one of Mike's future trainings could be on actually going through this and building it. Mike Carter's.
Okay. Let's see.
Of course, I mean, you can always reach out to him for an individual training on this.
I was going to ask, do you go over with them on the phone? Like you send yourself a link to your email, that way you can look at it at the same time? Because I sent it out and I asked if they have questions to call me and send it to myself, but I didn't go over it verbally together because they're down the hill. A lot of people are down the hill. So how would you go over it with them, Mark?
Set up a Zoom. Share your
Zoom.
screen.
Oh, share a
Yeah.
screen. Okay.
I'm doing, you know, exactly what we're doing here, where as I share the screen with them. And so
Okay.
this, you know, and again, this is I want to give a lot of information here. You know, we're certainly not going to master what it is that we're doing on this presentation that we're doing today. But to go to Gina's point about going through KV Core, in order to get to the part where you do your own CMA, is you go to the marketing tab on your screen, you go down to Core Present there, and it will open it up for you.
The listing.
So when the listing, so I want to create this for the seller. So I'm just going to go through this real quick just so you guys can see that it's possible to do it. 430 morning in Star Drive.
Just real quick, going back to Kinsey's thing, it tells you like there's heat maps. So it'll send you, after you send it to them, it'll send you like a little summary of where they kind of hovered the most, what page they spent the most time on, how many times they went back to the comps page and looked at that. So you can kind of go back to them and be like, hey, I saw you, or I don't know if you want to say I saw because that's creepy, but hey, did you have any questions? You know, the comps are, the comps, are based on this, and talk about what they really hit on and spent the most time on.
Yeah, let's know right when they opened it. It's nice. And they're done.
So I'm just going to give you guys a very, very brief touch on this so that you see how this KV Core presentation works. As you go next, you go to the comparables. You can go in and change single family is what I want, so I'm not going to change that. Year built, I'm going to want, I don't want 2002 only. I'm going to want from 1990 to 2023. Close date, I'm going to change that. I'm going to say 0 to, well, I'll leave it there for the purpose of this exercise.
You have to hit the check on the year or else it won't take effect.
There we go. So I'm going to say pull comps that match. What do I want to do here? Okay, I'm going to leave it at 3. Square footage, minus 20%, that's fine. We're going to leave it there. So the whole point of what I'm showing all of you here is that you can go in here and you can make changes to your thing. You can make changes so that you only pull comps that you want. I'm going to say 9,000 square foot lot up to 25,000 square foot lot. I remember my house was 1,800. So we are at square foot. So I'm going to click that and save it. So those are the comps that are going to come up. So now it says next build CMA. So I clicked up there. And this report is going to be valid there. Total comparables were used for this analysis. Nothing. How
You
is that
can put the
possible?
radius out to like 2 miles. That's what I've had to do. There's nothing. I don't know if that's too far, but yeah, you can expand the radius and
And you can also add from MLS, because that's kind of where I like the Big Bear MLS a little bit, because it's not just 3 bedrooms. You can do 3, anything like 3 or less, or any of that. So down at the bottom, you can go into our MLS and kind of do that, and then enter MLS numbers so that they pull those as well.
So did you see what I just did with the bedroom count? As I slid it over from 3 to 4, so now it's going to pull everything that's 3 and 4. And so that should bring me some, it's now I have 4 total matches. Do you see that?
Yes.
I had no idea it did that.
Okay. That's the price of the class right there. The value of the class is now you can modify this a little bit better. And it gets rid of one of those limitations that we had before. Okay, so now I'm going to build the CMA was the next part. Let's see, the most recent active 1.2 on Meadow Circle, most recent sold 1.275 on Castle Crag, average monthly list. So I mean, it goes right back into that same thing that we had before, right? Same pages. Okay. So let's go up to, I'm not going to edit that now. I'm going to save the CMA. Oh, he doesn't exist. So I don't have any, well, I'm trying to think of who I have in there. Don't have a KVR, click here, Mark. So here's one thing for all of you guys to write down, RTS. What does RTS stand for? Anybody?
Hey, John, how are you? Good.
RTS, what does RTS stand for?
S or F?
Yes,
Sam or Frank?
Sam. RTS, read the screen. Anytime you're having a problem, read the screen. Okay. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm at marketing, core present, and I'm looking for that past one. Okay, so there's my 2 presentations. There it is. I want to, there it is. No picture, but it's the same, basically that same format. So what I've just done with this is show you a little bit about what the finished product looks like, a little bit of the things that you can do to modify it. But your task would be, as if this is the program that you choose to do your presentations, is that you dive into it and master this particular way of doing things. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So I'm going to switch to the next one. This is a presentation that I have done that is in the Big Bear MLS.
Mark, may I say something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
On, excuse me. Hold on. As soon as I get my voice back. Just a thought that I have about it is that everyone is using the MLS, the Big Bear MLS presentation or the CR MLS presentation. You can still pull information regarding the comps from those resources, but you have a very specialized, like tech forward presentation. So it makes us stand out as we are the marketing experts, we're the listing experts, we're on top of it. We have the latest technology and, the image that it gives us, as well as being a great way to do it. So anyway, that was my thought, is we can stand out above everybody else by having something new and different.
Yeah. I really think the greatest barrier to using the KV Core listing presentation or the CMA that we're going through, or we just went through briefly, is because people haven't spent enough time to figure it out. And the learning curve to learn any new tool, it might take, 10 hours or 20 hours to figure out how to do it. But once you've learned it and you've spent that 20 hours, then you have a great presentation for the next 5 years or the next 2 years. So, don't avoid, investing the time in order to master the CMA program that you're going to use. So with that, this is a finished product that is in a PDF format of a listing presentation that comes directly out of the Big Bear MLS. Now you may wonder, why do I have this customized sheet? That didn't come out of our MLS. I'll show you a little bit later how that works. This is a page that comes out of the Big Bear MLS. So anybody that's using the Big Bear matrix to do their CMAs would probably recognize this page. There's a whole bunch of pages that they have in it. Obviously, this is a listing that was an expired listing, or came up on the market. So I did a presentation. I took the picture right out of the MLS and clicked it right in there. Was able to type in all of that information. Here's the minimum and maximums. This is a sheet that comes out of the Big Bear MLS presentation. If you compare, I like the visuals a lot better for the KV Core program, honestly. I like it a lot better. And I think it's pretty, this is sort of outdated, the graphics that are on it. But the information is still here. There's still different graphs that you can use that shows days on the market for the comps, to show the average. You can show the price graph, where they were listed, where they ended up selling for. It sort of gives you that if you like visual things like that. This is similar to a page that we saw in the KV Core where it showed you where the comps were. These are not in a circle necessarily, but it is identifying where they're at, and all of that information is down below. So is there anybody that is not familiar, speak up if you have never seen these pages before?
I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. And you said you were using the Big Bear MLS for your CMAs, Evan?
I was really just using it just to pull comps. I never saw this before.
Okay. Good. So the price of the class is worth it. Okay, here we go. Goes down into summary of all the comparable listings, the active listings, the expireds, the sold listings. And then it goes on to, that's the end of it. I pulled my marketing plan and some other things out of here. So this is sort of what a printed thing would be, as if you mailed it to them. You could send it to them in a PDF. It's certainly not as sexy as it's not as sexy as doing the KV Core online version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you in. This is where that CMA part of it is in the Big Bear MLS. So if you go to my matrix, it's going to say my CMAs. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to, why are those two different dates in there? I don't know why that's like that. Okay. So I'm going in here. That's where you find it. You can create them in here. It says edit CMA. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and edit it. Sort of some interesting things. It says the start. The start is where you put your contact's name in. You put the description of who they are if you want. If you have to create a new contact, you can do that to put them in. Here's the part where those custom pages came from. So any of you that have custom pages for your market analysis, you have custom marketing pieces that you want to share with people, you can manage those custom pages by coming in here and adding them. You just take a file right off your desktop and add it into the presentation. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Okay. I'm just trying to give you guys an overview because I know we're not going to master this. Okay. So my custom pages, I have my cover sheet, I have my marketing plan in there, I have a list of all my past sales, my brag sheet, you know, for lack of a better word, and a PDF that talks about all of my team members and what it is that they do. So anything that you want to customize, you can add in there. There's cover sheet, there's subject attachments, you can see those in here. So you can go in and you can add and remove different pages so that you have only the ones in the presentation that you want. Make sense? Okay. Clicking over on the tab that talks about subject, here's where you add the photo for the listing of the property that you're doing, and you can fill in all of the blanks for all of the information that you want there. You can put in a description of anything that you're aware of. It allows you to, you know, put it on the map, look at all of the features and everything that you can put in there for the subject. So you fill it out as completely as you can. There's their cover sheet. I don't use their cover sheet, I use my own. So here's probably the most beneficial thing about the Big Bear MLS. Okay. One of the most important things is that you can come in and you can pick exactly which comps you want to use, and you can exclude the ones that you don't want to use. This is a huge benefit, you know, if you are searching within our MLS, that you can pick and choose which things that you want to show to your client during the presentation. The limitations is that the Big Bear MLS does not have things that are in CRMLS only. So that's a big disadvantage, but the advantage is you can pick and choose what you want to use from our MLS. Clicking over here on map, I don't use the map. So what's happening here? Okay, so here's the adjustments. Here's one of the things that I think is so important for all of you to recognize: the difficulty with doing a CMA in Big Bear in particular is that all of the comps are so far all over the place. Part of my listing presentation is I tell people, you know, pricing property in Big Bear is an art, it's not a science. There's big houses next to old house or new, there's big houses next to small houses, there's old houses next to new houses. You know, the land value on the lake might be $1 million across the street. It could be 300,000. You go 2 blocks in, it might be 125,000. And so you've got this wide range of comparable things that people are looking at. So one of the important things that you can do if you're using this particular program for your CMA is that you can come in and you can make adjustments. So for example, 251 North Eureka has 5 bedrooms. This one has 9 bedrooms. I can say plus $25,000 for the extra bedrooms. This one has 6 baths. This one over here on Knoll Road has 8 baths. A bathroom in a high-end house like that's probably $20,000 a piece. So I'm gonna shut it down and I'm gonna say minus 30,000. And I can make those adjustments. Do you guys see how I'm doing that? Why is this important? So I'm going to say minus 15,123, minus 15,123. I'm going to say minus 35. Okay, I'm just giving this to you guys as an example so that you can see that adjustments can be made. And the reason why that's important is when you get to the finished product, when you're looking at the comparables on the sheet when it's done, let's see, I'm going to save it. And I'm going to view the CMA again. Hopefully I'm not messing you guys up with all of this stuff that I'm throwing at you. I'm just trying to open your mind to the things that you can be doing with the CMA as you get to the point where you're going to be perfecting the way that you present it.
Mark, so you, those numbers you entered were exactly where I struggle because I don't know how to value a bedroom versus a bathroom or a game room versus a bedroom or living space versus sleeping spaces, etc. So when you were doing that up and down, the 25,000, 30,000, that would be really helpful to know kind of as a general guideline how you would assess increases or decreases in rooms, bedrooms, bathrooms, etc.
Okay. Okay, so this is will be worth the price of admission then. Okay. Sometime back, and I want to say it's probably 30 years ago, one of my friends, Rick Potter, was an agent that ended up getting his appraiser's license. And so he went through the training to become an appraiser, and he had me doing BPOs for him or helping him with BPOs at the time. And he sort of gave me notes on what those adjustments were that appraisers were using when they did an appraisal. So whenever I would go out to do a CMA for a client, I would recognize that a house that didn't have a garage wasn't quite comparable to a house that did have a garage. But if the houses were exactly the same, I needed to have an adjustment for the garage. And at the time, a single car garage was $5,000 adjustment from an appraiser standpoint, and a 2-car garage was 10. You know, the God's honest truth today is that you can't replace a garage for probably 35,000. You know, if you've got a cabin here without a garage and a cabin over here with a garage, and you want to duplicate it, it's going to cost you $35,000 to add a new garage to it. The hard part, you know, at least for today that I will share with you is that I can't give you exactly what those adjustments are in today's market. I know what I use, but I've reached out to a couple of appraisers to get some information from them. And the answer that I got from them is that it depends on the value of the house. If you have a $2 million house and you have a custom bathroom, it might be a $35,000 adjustment for that bathroom. If you have a 900 square foot gambrel with a bathroom, it might be 7,000. So the price of each of the amenities will go up based on the quality of the structure itself. And there's no hard and fast rules with it, if that makes sense. I mean, there are things that are basically reasonable discussions that you can have with people and sort of narrow down those numbers for yourself. I wish I could be more specific with you, today in this presentation, but maybe we can do that another time.
So Mark, I was just thinking about reaching out to one of our friends, appraisers, and maybe see if there's some sort of a list or some kind of a range that they use for those adjustments, like for a garage, a bathroom, per square foot or whatever. So I think I'll do that. Maybe reach out to Rick Hackney or one of our old buddies to see if we can get some guidelines on that.
Yeah.
And I have a question on this, on the adjustments too. How did you get from, plus or minus?
Yeah. And so what,
that.
Yeah, and so what happens when you fill out that particular, when you put in the minus 30 or you add 30, what ends up happening is when you go to the printed out version or the version of the CMA, it will have those adjustments made in them. And so it'll say, yeah, the thing sold for 2.4, but we added $30,000 in bathrooms and we subtracted $50,000 for a boathouse or whatever. I mean, you can actually have those adjustments show up on the comparables, and what it does to your CMA is it brings the value range closer together. So instead of having comps that are like this and you're saying, oh, well, it's right here, this is where you're supposed to be, they say, well, why? And then you have to explain it. But if you make the adjustments on your CMA and you bring it in, and then they're not saying, well, I want to be over here or I want to be down here. They want to be in between that range. Does that make sense? So when you make the adjustments, that's where you're going to be able to bring those closer together. And remember, I shared with you early on is that one of the biggest problems I see with the CMAs is that what we basically take comps out to them, and the comps don't tell them a story. It's just a bunch of information. And they're saying, well, you know, where am I supposed to be priced? And if you tell them a number they don't like, then they say, prove it. And we don't know how to prove it. Right. And that's the challenge that we're having with the CMA. So, you know, when I started off the conversation saying, you know, are they irrelevant? They're not irrelevant. It's just difficult. You know, it is just difficult in order to be able to sell, which is influence thought, to help people to understand that the price per square foot doesn't mean anything. It's other things. Make sense?
So when you enter the amount of the adjustment in the column, how do we know if it's a plus or a minus?
Okay.
How do we input that?
So whenever I'm making an adjustment on a comparable, if the comparable is better, I'm going to subtract, because if it's got a $30,000 more valuable bathroom, then the comp needs to be 30,000. That price needs to come down 30,000 to be more related to the comp or to the subject property. Does that make sense? If my comparable, or let's say my subject property has a 2-car garage. It has a 2-car garage, but the comp doesn't. Then this sales price is really less a garage. So I would add the garage to make it equal to the subject.
But how do you make it plus or minus in the column? Like you're going to put in the amount, is it plus or minus?
Yeah, well, if I put in 30,000, it's going to add it. If I put in minus 30, it's going to subtract it.
But where do you put the minus? That's what I'm trying to get to. It's probably like not making sense. I'm not.
Let me go back to
Judy, unmute, Judy.
So where was I? Was I there? So
When
if I
you
go
put
back
parentheses
to,
around it, and then it automatically makes it a minus. I feel like I've done that.
see how they came out, that's the subtraction right there. So what
Yeah,
I
so you
did,
just put the parentheses around it. Okay.
well, I put 30,000, I put a subtract 30,000 and it came up automatic. So no subtraction, it's a 25,000 positive. If you put in a minus 30, it comes up that way. Let's see if you can do parentheses. I'll do 15,000 this time.
I think you have to do
Yeah, no, you have to do the subtraction. Yeah, you have to do the minus.
You have to
do
put the parentheses in. Okay.
No, if you put the minus sign,
You just do the minus
then
sign.
it will do it itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
So I have a
Judy, did
couple
you have
of other
something to add?
questions.
No, that's how I do it.
You put the parentheses around it. Okay.
No. I put the minus sign.
Oh,
Minus sign
okay.
and
And then it
no plus.
automatically puts the parentheses.
It
Okay.
does.
Got it. Okay.
Judy, are you able to make price adjustments in the KV core on individual comps?
No.
Okay, and that's one of the down. See, you know, when I look at the matrix MLS one that we're looking at here, I like it because I'm able to make those adjustments. And so I can narrow the number of the comps down to where I have a story to paint for the sellers when I'm trying to give them the right price. I like the visual of the KV core, and I like the fact that I don't have to go to 2 MLSs to find all of the comps. So that's sort of where we're at with that. I'm going to stop sharing there. Any questions on what we've done so far? And if after I've done that, I'm going to talk about a couple of other things before we go. Go ahead, Gina.
So just to clarify something you said at the start, and you just repeated it now, in KV Core, because you're a member of multiple MLSs, it's bringing both of the MLSs into KV Core. So you're not having to do what I've been doing and what we've been doing, which is going to the 2 separate MLSs and pulling data. Did I hear that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be sure. Thanks.
Yeah, and
Nope.
and the one thing I would share that that is sort of painful is that there's still fragmentation in the data between MLSs, and so you have these programs that give really great technological presentations, but they don't have all the data. And then you have the ones that have all or have more data and more features or different features, but it's not as flashy or sexy. I think I said sexy, and Kinsey liked that one a lot. Okay.
And, oh, Judy had a comment.
Yeah, I've noticed when doing the CMA and the KV core, sometimes I'll get duplicates, which I'm assuming is one CRMLS, one's Bear Valley. Then I see that they don't have all of our Bear Valley matrix listings in there, so I have to go in and add them. And I don't know why that is.
And do you do that in KV Core? You add the listings in KV Core?
Oh yeah, there's a spot down on one of the pages where you put the information where you can add MLS ID numbers.
Okay.
So you can do your research on the MLSs on certain things and then add it
And
into
then add them.
Okay, so I'm trying to get away from this page. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I'm
Go into
going
update, yeah. Now
Okay,
on
so I'm
this
updating.
page, Mark, on this page, go all the way down to the bottom and you'll see where it says enter MLS ID.
Bottom
Read
left.
the screen right
Bottom
here.
left.
So if I add an MLS ID, then it will add it into the presentation.
It will.
That solves the problem of missing data that is on this. I don't think there's as much of a problem with missing data here, but when there is, that's the solving for it. The biggest and probably the only downside to this KV Core CMA is the inability to make adjustments to the comps to bring those numbers closer together. Okay.
Well, maybe it's an inability because we don't know how to do it. So maybe we need to
You can delete
research that.
stuff. I deleted stuff off. I deleted pages. I deleted anything that I didn't help me with the listing. So you can delete anything from KV Core too.
Okay.
But making the
So-
adjustments where it has a garage or it doesn't have a garage, how do we do that on KV Core is the question.
Yeah, and the other part of it is even if the designers of the program don't have that feature in there now, we could ask them to add it. I'm sure it would be helpful to do that. So
I was wondering,
So-
Judy, can you add a PDF page to that? Or can you add something in there where you could do that adjustment sheet like Mark showed on the MLS? Make a printout and then
No.
put it into KV Core?
Not that I'm aware of.
Man,
When
I'll
you go
ask-
to the very end where it says edit, it looks like you can add stuff and delete stuff. I didn't try to add anything, but when you get to the very end of it, it'll say edit, and it has a spot. It looks like a plus sign. You can put your own thing in it, your own document.
That's something to check out then.
okay.
I'll ask Mike.
So the one thing we're absolutely clear on as we go through this class, which is running close to an hour now, is that we have a lot more work to do in order to master what it is that we're doing. And I think that's important, is that, a lot of times you get a presentation and you get information that says, man, there's all that stuff to do. Well, if we don't go any further, it's almost as if we didn't even show up this last hour because nothing changes in our business. So, finishing the race is, second only to starting the race. You got to start the race, you got to go through the middle, and you got to finish the race in order to get the benefits of it. So here are the ideas that I have. Is one is to ponder the things that you've seen about the two different programs and decide which one seems to suit you, and then make the investment in time in order to learn how to complete it. To complete it and to figure out how to to put a presentation together that makes sense to you, that you can express and explain to your client in a way that is more important to them, saying, well, I had a client tell me this one time. I sent him comps. I had a listing some years back, and when I would send him, like, every couple of weeks, I'd send them all of the properties that closed, and I'd say, here's your competition that sold in the last 2 weeks. And I'll never forget the guy saying, I already know that. I see that stuff on Redfin every damn day when it happens. What do I need you for? I mean, that was what he said to me. What do I need you for? That information's on Redfin. So it's important that we recognize that our clients have a lot of information available to them today. And it's not that we have to have all the information. It's just that we have to make sure that we know what the information is and that we can influence their thought by our knowledge. And here's the thing that's most important is to understand the differences in value. Whenever somebody is looking at a house that's 2,000 square feet and one sells at $202 a square foot and one sells for $450 a square foot, it should create a lot of confusion in the mind of the client. Because if they're thinking square foot only, then something's wrong if something's selling at $202 a foot and one's selling at $450. Something's different. And it's our job as real estate professionals to know what those differences are. It's our job to know what those differences are and to be able to express them to the client, okay? So I wrote down a list of things, and I know that they were in the notes that you guys, received today before the class, is that, and the question is, what are the factors that influence value in the eye of a typical buyer? Now, remember, we're doing CMAs, and we're talking with sellers, but we have to be able to justify and to explain to a seller what the typical buyer in our marketplace is looking for. I used the analogy as recently as a few days ago, is that if a buyer wants a 2,000 square foot Gilligan log style home, there are plenty of comps that will justify that, and so they're pretty easy to price. But anytime you get something that is a little bit out of the ordinary, you have to be able to make adjustments based on the preferences of the buyers. So obviously the square footage and the size of the home is a factor that people look at with pricing. When you drive up to a house in Moonridge that has a steep driveway, or it looks like you're going over the side of the cliff down to the house, what do the buyers normally say?
No.
Who said no? Judy? Okay, yeah. Well, some of them say no. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is that the average buyer isn't going to buy a steep driveway that's difficult to get in and out of. Why would they buy something that has a steep driveway? Because it's cheaper. Because it fits their budget. And the ones that have the similar house, I go back, about 30 years ago, there was a couple that was looking for a house around 90,000 that had little kids. And there were a bunch of sort of crappy houses that were on flat lots that sort of met the needs of the family. But there was one house that was just really in great shape, and it was new and dual pane windows, and it was sexy. It was a sexy house. Problem is that it was on a 25 by 100 lot that had a driveway that not only was like this steep, but it had a hump in the middle like this. And then a one-car garage at the top of it. So you'd have to like gun the engine, get up over the hump and slide into that garage. And then when you were coming out, you would like slide down if there was any snow there. And I remember, showing this particular couple 7 or 8 houses. And I said, you want to go back to that first one? And they did. And as we were walking, back out of the house for the second visit, their 6-year-old daughter fell and scraped her knee on the steep driveway. And I go, damn, there goes that sale. That was my thought, is there goes that sale. They bought it anyway because the house was probably a $130,000 house that they could spend $90,000 on and get. All they had to do was put up with that driveway, and they were willing to do it. So that steep driveway, in my mind, was worth about $30,000. Okay. There's other things that your buyers are going to be looking for, and you sort of have to identify what the average buyer would like. The average buyer does not want a steep driveway. The average buyer doesn't want to, well, if they want to be active in the village, they really don't want to be at the top of Moon Ridge, that takes 20 minutes to get to. So ease of access to the house is an important factor that you're going to be looking at for value. The amenities, hot tub, pool, does it have air conditioning? Does it have an RV garage? Those things are going to affect the value, and you're going to have to make adjustments for those. The view, lake, ski slope, national forest, or does it have a view of junk of the house next door? Never forget the junk, okay? And then you sort of grade the view. I mean, is it a 10 view? Is it a 6 view? Is it a 2 view? I mean, if you're standing on your tippy toes in the master bedroom looking out the window to see the lake, that might be a 1 view. If you're, sitting in the master bedroom and you see treetops in this wide 180-degree view of the lake, that might be a 10 view. If you're looking out your master bedroom window and you see power lines in front of the lake, that might be a 7 view. So you want to start grading and sort of making judgments on the quality of these features that people are looking for, and be able to express that to your clients when you're talking to them about the difference between their home and the comps. You're trying to get somebody at $1 million. They're looking at comps that are $1.1 million or $1.2 million, and you say, well, there's a difference to their view. Your view's got power lines in it. Your view's got rooftops in it. Their view is 180 degrees with treetops and nothing else in it. Does that make sense? So, because we are running out of time, I am going to stop with that because we will have more times to talk about this information. Is there any questions or final requests that you guys have going forward?
I just thank you. Like, to piggyback off everything you just said, Judy really helped me with that because it was tough. It's a new home, but it's in Sugarloaf. And so she really helped me with just verbiage of what to say to them because they're expecting way high. And you run the comps and, it's just not. And so she just helped me with, like, that's the charm of Sugarloaf and people can afford. And so if you ever need help, Judy is a great source. Thank you, Judy.
Oh, boy, Judy. Well, also it has junk next to it, that one. So that needs to take off. It's a brand new, beautiful home. And it's got junk and a barking dog next to it. So
next to the junkyard. Yeah.
So there's going to be some serious deductions there that they're not going to want to hear.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Gina.
Judy helped.
What are your thoughts on how you deal with clients who have use the Zillow estimate as their expectation for what the value of their home should be?
Well, I do it in questions. I do it in questions. The first one I say, are you aware that Zillow has a 15% wide range of value in their own estimation of their valuation tools? I see you shaking your head, yes, but the client's probably going to say, no, I didn't know that. So they're probably going to say no. I sort of make the comment to them is that and it depends on what their line of work is. I talk about their line of work. I mean, some attorneys make $150 an hour, and some attorneys make $600 an hour. Why do you think that is? I mean, and this is a question to the client. Why do you think that is?
My experience.
It's because, it's the experience that comes in it. And Zillow is a computer model, and there's that is taking the averages of everything. Do you think your house is average?
They're going to say no.
Yeah, they're gonna say no, which means they're probably gonna go higher than what they're gonna say. I want to go higher. But there's a series, of questions, that goes into the process. Number one, do you know that Zillow doesn't believe their own estimates? One proof of that is they went into this buyer program where they were buying properties and they had to sell, several $1 million of real estate at a loss because their valuation model was not correct. That's one thing. The second one is, the value of, do you think your house is average? This is a computer model. I believe in human intelligence. I believe in human intelligence. And so I would go into, these factors that we talked about here, which is, do you know how buyers in Big Bear determine value? Well, yes, they look at the price per square foot, but they look at the ease of access. Is the driveway accessible, flat, steep? How far away from the amenities that they want to go to is it? Does it have a hot tub, the pool, air conditioning, of the things that they're looking for? What's the quality of the view? Do you think the computer knows what the quality of your view is? The answer to that is probably no. They're only looking at a location. I've been in all of these homes, and the Zillow robot has not been in all of these homes. So I can tell you the quality of the materials, the quality of the workmanship, and I can tell you the cleanliness, but the computer model can't tell you that. So that's where and so I end it with, I said, the best thing in the world for my business is Zillow, because if Zillow was accurate, you wouldn't need me.
That's good.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, sir.
I have an issue with sellers that I notice is that they have a house, and then the house across the street is pretty much the same as that house. It's got 2-car garage, same square footage, same views, everything. But their house is trapped in 1970s and the other house is updated. But they don't know that the house is updated, but they're asking me why can't they list their house for that same price as the house across the street is listed for.
Okay. So, right out of the Mike Ferry script that you've heard before, okay, is when you're going through the comparables, you'll say, are you familiar with this house? And they're going to say yes. And you're going to say, have you been inside this home? What's their answer?
No.
Is their answer no, Mike?
Yeah, most of the time, unless they're like, friends with the neighbors.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked me I'm role playing with you. I'm glad you asked the question, Mike, about that, because you're familiar with where the home is and how big it is in comparison to your home. And from that standpoint, they are very, very similar. But you haven't been in the home, and I have. And this home has granite countertops. It has updated fixtures and new hardwood floors. And you still have the 1970s Formica and the fiberglass tubs, and the curling linoleum, at the floor. You'd say it nicer than I just said it. Okay. I'm just having fun here, because that's how I think. It's really hard, because sometimes I have a microphone on the outside of my head and I say things I shouldn't say. So when you're doing the presentation, that's where you're going with it. As I've been in the home, and it has this feature, and it has this feature, and it has this feature. And so how much do you think it would cost, Mike, to replace all of your countertops with granite, replace all of your hardwood floors, replace the fixtures in the house? You think it's $30,000, $45,000? How much do you think it would be?
Yeah, it could be 60 to 100,000 depending on the size of the home.
Okay. So if you were a buyer, Mike, and there was a home for sale at this price, like your neighbor's house price, that had all the bells and whistles, and you had this house at, that was still living in the 70s, would you pay the same price for your house or for this house versus the one that's all fixed up?
No.
Don't you think most buyers would feel the same way?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do the right thing and sell it at a price that will allow the buyer to come in and buy your home and get you moved. And if they want to upgrade it, they can spend the $60,000 to make it just like the house across the street.
Yeah, for sure. Another good question is, let's say you're working in a new area and you get 5 comps for a property and you've never been in any of those properties. How can you judge which house has what inside of it if you've never seen it. You're just going off of numbers.
You can look at the pictures. I send them all the things so they can look at the pictures and they can see the inside is nice. I mean, you can't see it for yourself, maybe Photoshop, but they can look inside all the houses and say, click on them.
Because a lot of times in listings, I see they have a great picture, and then when you get there, you bring your clients, you don't realize there's a steep driveway like Mark was talking about. The first picture is right at the front door. And then you pull up with the clients and they're like, hey, Mike, I told you I didn't want a steep driveway. And now you're like, okay, great. It's already, you're there. So.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sort of sensitive to that. So I'm gonna shorten this up as we get ready to go with an answer to that is that, the benefit of being a professional, and our industry is under attack right now. The benefit of being a professional is that we have knowledge that other people don't have. One of the greatest bits of knowledge that you can have is real-time knowledge of the comparables and the properties that you are talking about in your marketplace. So previewing property in person is super, super, super critical. The second thing is to know all of these lists of features, curb appeal, functionality of floor plan, and all of those types of features that buyers in our marketplace are looking for, and being able to express that to your client is invaluable. But when worse comes to worse, you do exactly what Kinsey said, is you review the pictures yourself. If you haven't been in there, just review the pictures yourself and do the best you can.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, caravan.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more information that we need to get you to, to follow through on this. If you have anything that you need help from me, please reach out to me directly so I can work with you one-on-one, because some things are better done one-on-one than they are done in a class, situation to help you get through things. And we will work on the adjustments with the appraisers to get some help with that on the pricing. And we'll get that to you soon, okay?
Mark, can I just say one more thing?
Mhm.
In closing and in reviewing our training from our friend and mutual mentor, Mr. Tim Wood, as well as many others back in the day, but it was very simple. Know your inventory. And knowing your inventory means you've been in the property. And if it's not available, find out how to get in. That's why Mark's team calls every listing every week and finds out what the access is, sets up appointments if they need to. Though this is a priority in our business, is knowing our inventory. And I just think of like, okay, if I owned a retail store, I'd have to go out and make an investment and buy all this inventory. And then I'd probably be sitting there on half of it and have to, discount it and put it on sale or donate it at the end, whatever. We don't have to buy anything as far as our inventory. And we can just sell other people's property, OPP, other people's property, and we just get to sell it. We don't have to buy it first. So what's so hard to invest some time to make that a priority? I don't get it when people don't preview. Back in the day, that was on our schedule every day, is we previewed, and we went on 2 tours a week. Thursday morning, the MLS tour, and Friday morning, our company tour. So, without that, you really are just, kind of working in the dark. So anyway, that's my closing thoughts.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you for
Well-
coming, and thank you for